Well, hello there. This is Mrs. McManus, and I'm so excited to have all these students on a Friday night in my class. That is very exciting. At first I thought not that many were going to show up, and then all of you showed up, so I'm very excited. We are going to review Module 3 today, and let's talk about our learning goals today. We're going to learn all the topics in Module 3. We're going to learn everything to pass the Module 3 practice test. We're going to learn everything to pass the test. We're going to learn everything to pass the DBA. We are also going to work on technology. We're going to use technology to graph. And that is something that if you have not used technology, it is very useful. So I am going to teach you how to use this, and you will see that it will help you immensely in this course. All right, so let's get started. I do want everyone to have notes. So if you don't have a notebook, make sure you get something down. This is a review that you really should be taking notes. For those of you who are watching this video that is already recorded, you should pause this when you're watching it and take notes. It's really important to get the most information that you can from the lesson. All right, let's get started. Now, I made a bunch of graphs here because, you know, I wanted to practice graphing. Now, it says here, which equation matches the graph? Now, yes, I can plug it in and I can see, you know, which one it is, but let's take a look at something obvious. And I'm going to move this over here. We know that the equations are written y equals mx plus b. We know that b is our y-intercept. So let's identify where b is on this graph. Let me get my pen. This is where B is. Correct? Everyone sees where I circled? So which one of these goes through -4? Well, not this one. That one goes through +4. You see that? And now this one goes through +4. So those two get eliminated. So the next thing we need to look at is the slope. Even without graphing this directly, I can tell you what the answer is. The answer is always, I mean, you have two choices. You have -2x minus 4, or you have -3x minus 4. Well, when a line goes like this, it's a positive slope. Positive slope. I used to have this guy who I had pictures of it, and his name was Puff Puff Positive. If you're skiing and you're going uphill on a ski slope, you're going to be puffing, huffing, and puffing to go up the mountain. So you think Puff Puff Positive. Okay? Now, if on the slope you are going nice, negative, if you're going down this way, it's nice, negative, because you're going downhill. Okay? So this would be nice, negative. A negative slope. So when we look at what was written, we have a -2x, which would mean a negative slope. Or wait a second. What am I missing here? 2x plus 4, -3. Are both of the slopes negative? Am I seeing something that isn't? Yeah, I think there's a typo on here. One of these two, and I don't know if it was the way I wrote it because I actually typed up these equations, and now I'm looking at it and saying, I did not type it correctly. So let's identify the slope on this equation. Slope is always rise over the run. Remember that. Slope is the rise over the run. I even have a slope song. Slope is a rise over the run. The distance up or down divided by the distance side to side. So let's count. We're going to make our little triangle like this, and we always use points that we can easily identify. So we're going to go up how many units? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units up, and 2 units to the right. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I believe that should not have been a negative. That's probably just plain 3x plus 4, because it minus 4, because it does go through the 4. So let's identify. It goes through the negative 4, and that has a negative 4, and it is rise 6 over 2, rise over the run. 6 divided by 2 is 3, so that has to be our answer. And if you guys want to hear the slope song, it's slope is the rise over the run, the distance up or down, divided by the distance side to side. When the line moves from left to right, positive slope goes up, negative slope goes down. Y2 minus Y1 goes in the numerator. X2 minus X1 goes in the denominator. Slope is the rise over the run. All right, let's continue. All right, here's one of those DBA questions. How do you represent a relation? Who can tell me? A, B, C, or D? I'm going to change this to voting. A, B, C, or D? Please vote. A, B, C, or D? Up at the top, you can vote. At the top of the toolbar, like where you raise your hand, you can vote A, B, C, or D. How do you represent a relation? Okay, I have 1 vote. I only have 1 vote. Guys, you need a vote. Everybody. Okay, Faith voted. I need 2 more votes. Ann, Tian, and Gwyneth, please vote. At the top, you see a smiley face. Next to smiley face, there's a little step away from the session, raise hand, and then there's a letter A. If you click on the little triangle on the right-hand corner of the A, I can take a picture of it and post it so you can see. Right there. You click on this little thing here and you can vote. Then you'll see an A, a B, a C, and a D. Did you figure it out, Gwyneth? Oh, I don't think she's figuring it out. All right. I am going to publish the responses to the whiteboard right here. This is how you voted. I didn't vote. The phone is counted as a student didn't vote, and Gwyneth didn't vote. So one student said it was a set of coordinates or ordered pairs. And then 2 said it was inputs with outputs. Or all the above, sorry, all the above. It actually is all the above. It's all of them, because a set of coordinates or ordered pairs is correct. The graph of a line has ordered pairs. Inputs, your X is your input, your Y is your output, so it is all the above. All right, and this is a DBA question. Let's continue. F of X is the total cost in dollars of X burgers. And which of the following statements best describes the meaning of F of 3? So your input is your 3. Your output is your 15. That is really important to know. Your input is 3, output is 15. So if it tells you in the sentence above, it says F of X equals the total cost of X burgers, and F of X is 15, isn't it? So 15 is the total cost of X burgers. The X is 3, so there are 3 burgers. So which one is the answer? I'm going to clear the votes. Oh, Gwyneth figured it out. So which one of these would be the answer? A, B, C, or D? I'd like you guys to try. Tyler voted. I need everyone else to vote. Please feel free to interject, say something if you have anything to say. Come on, guys, please vote. A, B, C, or D. All right, I got 2 votes. I got 3 votes. And Chin, I'm waiting for you. All right. So I see correct answer and I see incorrect answer. Remember, it said F of X is total cost of burgers. So obviously, the total cost of burgers is not $3. So that would be, couldn't be D, right? Now we say 15 is the total cost of burgers. We figured that out. We also have 3 burgers. 3 burgers. You see that right there? 3. Because it's F of 3. And X is your burgers. You have X, which is the 3. You see, that's your burgers. So the only possible answer could be A. The total cost of 3 burgers is $15. All right, let's continue. Hopefully, I figured out the right answer for this before typing it up. F of X equals 3x squared minus 2. Find F of 3. So F of X equals 3x squared minus 2. We're figuring out F of 3. So we're going to replace the X with a 3. So we have 3 times 3 squared minus 2. So F of 3 equals 3 times 9. You always do the exponents first. And F of 3 equals 27 minus 2. So F of 3 equals 25. Please copy so you have this in your notes. I need some response from you guys. I feel like I'm not hearing anything. You got it? Is everyone good? Okay, no, not a problem. Please go ahead and write it all down. This will help you on your DBAs and your tests. Let me know when you've got it all down. All right. Here's another DBA question. I have them scattered throughout. When a relation is a function, what rule applies? Now, I just wrote the rules down so that you can look at it and know, because I'm going to ask you this question on your DBA. Look at the x values. If the relation has two x values that are the same, then it is not a function. If the relation does not have two x values that are the same, then it is a function. That's the rule that we're looking for. Please make sure you've got this down because this is a DBA question. Let me know when you've got it copied down. All right, everyone good? Tyler, okay. All right. Let's take a look at this. Now, this question here, we're going to use a little bit of graphing technology. But we're going to look at it first because this question here, the way it stands, it's on. Now, right, think about this. This question is this important. It's on possibly your DBA, it's on your practice test, it's on your module test, and it's on the final exam. So is this a difficult question? Is this a question? No, not difficult. Is this a question you should really know how to do? If it's on DBA, practice test, module test, final exam. This is one of those you've got to know questions, okay? Now, here it says, which of the following statements best describes replacing the graph of f of x with the graph of f of x plus 3? So we have to, generally what I do is I say, okay, f of x, I would say is just y, right? So you can say f of x equals, let me see, f of x equals y. No. Yeah, f of x equals x. Let's say f of x equals x. And then we're going to say f of x equals, and then you have the f of x equals, now we're going to add the 3. Now you have to see what happens to these two equations, f of x and f of x plus 3. Does it shift 3 units down? Does it shift 3 units up? Does it go left or it go right? So let's take a look at what it does. Let's see if I can get this to work. If you see my graph, I'm successful. If you see a picture of Walt Disney World, then I'm not. Tell me what you see. Does everyone see my graph? Awesome. Now, what you see that I graphed was f of x equals x. When they give you this type of equation, that's a generic equation. They didn't actually give you an equation. I made one up. F of x, I said is equal to x. I could have said whatever, but I want something simple. So here I have f of x equals x. The next one, f of x equals, we said, x plus 3. Now, did you notice the green graph just show up? You notice the green graph? Now, here was your original one, and here is your new one. Now, how many units did it go up? It moved up, didn't it? Don't we see that it moved up? How many units did it move up? I'm going back to the classroom to take a look at this picture. It moved 3 units up. That is correct. So it is important that, and we're going to come back to graphing again on Desmos. When you have something like that, go for the graph. Graph it and see what happened, how many units you go up. It went up 3 units. Here are the points. All you have to do on Desmos is click on the dot, and it'll give you the coordinates. You see, that's all I did. It gave me the coordinates. I think it's awesome. So please use graphing technology, or this technology, especially on something like this, because it makes life a lot easier. Do you guys need a second to copy something down? Now, how about we try, everyone open Desmos, right? Because I asked before for everyone to open Desmos. Okay, how about this? I'm going to type here, graph the following. Y equals 3x minus 4. Go ahead and graph that. That was our equation a little while ago that we did. Then I want you to graph. Tell me when you've graphed it. Let me know when you've graphed it. And I'm going to share my screen again. Mr. Dane again. Okay. Antian, did you graph it? Gwyneth did. If you need me to show you how to graph it, I will explain it to you. I'll show it to you I'll share my screen with you. Okay, Antian got it. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and see if what I did is what you did, or what I do. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, so our graph was y equals 3x minus 4. Your graph look like that? All right. Now I'm going to enter another equation. Y equals 3x plus 2. Now go ahead and try to graph that, 3x plus 2. Okay, what can you tell me about these two lines? How are they similar to each other? They're going the same way. Do they have the same slope? I'm going to copy this. Do they have the same slope? Yes, positive slopes. What else can we tell about their slopes? Do they look like they're railroad tracks? So railroad tracks are parallel. Thank you, Tyler. That's the word I was looking for. These lines have the same slope. The slope is 3/1, right? That's the slope. So the slopes are the same. They're parallel. Now, how many units up is the black line from the orange line, which was our original line? How many units of change? All you have to do is count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You see how I kind of, they don't have the little numbers here. This should have been a 1 right there. And that should have been a -1, and that's a -2, and the -3 would be hiding, but it would be like here, -3. So it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. It moved up 6 units. Does that make sense, guys? How do I see that? 6 units, because on the number line, you have this number line here, right? And I'm going to make the number line a little thicker so you can see it. All right. That number line, it goes up 6 units. This would be, it starts here at 4, you see? You see where it crosses, the y-intercept's at 4? Then 3 would be your next number, -2 is the next number, -1 is the next number, then 0, then 1, then 2. So if we count the difference, it would be the difference between the y-intercept. Oh, okay, that's okay. Do you see what I did now? Okay. You're just hearing it and you aren't watching me. That's okay. Not a problem. All right, can we move on? Are you guys good? All right. How do you find domain and range? This is another DBA question. How do you find the domain? And we just talked about it. What is the domain? What is the range? I need somebody to answer. What is the domain? What is the range? Getting no answers from anyone. Okay. The range is on the y-axis. All right. All you have to say is the domain are the x values. And the range are the y values. That's all you have to say, so you might want to copy this. All right, how do you find slope? Who can tell me how you find slope? How do you find slope? Tyler, you still there?
Yeah.
Can you tell me how you find slope? I sang about it. Is anyone listening? Nobody has their notes? How do you find slope? All right. Quiet group tonight. Slope is the rise over the run, the distance up or down divided by the distance side to side. y2 minus y1, that's your numerator. x2 minus x1 is your denominator. I see Faith is typing. All right, are we good to move on? You guys copy this. These are both TBA questions. All right, we're halfway there. All right, let's continue. What is the average rate of change? Now, let me tell you guys about average rate of change. That word there is going to show up in this module, the next module, your final exam for segment 1, and it's going to actually show up in segment 2 also. Now, rate of change is a fancy way of calling what? Who can tell me what it's a fancy way of calling? Another word. Slope. Exactly. So when you are finding slope, what you need to do is identify 2 dots. That's the first thing you want to do. And that way you do your rise over your run. So I find 2 things that I can easily find coordinates for, the 0, 4, and the 1, 1. So I make my triangle. It's my right triangle, right? So this is my right triangle. Now I'm going to count how many units I had to rise, which it's slope goes down, so you know it's a negative slope. 1, 2, 3, so it's a -3 down, and it's run of 1. So your rise is -3. Your run equals 1. So -3 over 1 is the same as saying -3. So your answer would be B. Understand, guys, this is a question that will show up every step of the way. So you really need to make sure you copy this down. Let me know when you're ready to move on. This is very important. Okay, we are ready to move on. All right, everybody's done. All right, let's go. Select the correct equation for the following graph. You notice it's a straight line. It's a vertical line like that, right? When it's a line just that goes up and down like that, you only use your x, because isn't x always -1? Notice, isn't x always -1? If you are unsure, go ahead and place some coordinates and see what the coordinates are. This one would be -1, 2. This one would be -1, -3. This one would be -1, -7. So the only way to write this as an equation would be x equals -1. All right, everyone good? Okay. All right. Select the equation that matches the given description. The horizontal line passing through 3, -2. I always like to have a graph to look at it and write the graph. So when you get something like this on a test, you want to make a graph, because that will help your understanding. And remember, you always have GeoGebra that you could use, or Desmos. So 3, -2 would be 3, -2 would be right here. Let me move it. I think it had a little off center. That would be 3, -2. And it said the horizontal line. So notice that it went through 2, -2. So what would it always be? What value doesn't change? If I put a dot here, if I put a dot here, what would my coordinates be? This would be -4, -2. This is 3, -2. This is 6, -2. What value does not change? Is it my x value or is it my y? My y value. So the only possible solution would be y equals -2. All right? Ready to move on to the next question? Okay, great. All right, now we already did this, and it shows up again, so that shows you it's important. But now you guys have the experience that we already did this. The graphs of f of x and g of x equals f of x plus k. And it's a little different, but it's similar. The value of k is, well, what they're saying is that this k is the change. So here you have f of x, and here's g of x. How many units did it change? So all you really have to do is count how many units it went up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it should be A equals 7. Does everyone get that? We've already done this once, so this is the second time. You should be good with this. All right. How would you graph y equals 1/2 x minus 5? What's the first thing we do? And when I'm one of the DBA question is explain how to graph. So I'm going to explain how to graph because I expect you to do it, so I'm going to do it, and you pay attention, take notes. So I'm going to explain how to graph. So the first thing I'm going to do is identify my y-intercept and place a dot on my y-intercept. So I think it's important that we follow steps. So my step 1, find the y-intercept, which, oops, I spelled which wrong. Which is 0, -4. -5, sorry. Step 2, find the slope. Use rise over the run to find the next point. So I go up, my rise is 1, my run is 2 units. So take a look at what I do. I go up 1 unit, and then I'm going to change colors for the next one so you can see. And I run 2 units. And I put my dot there. And then I can draw my line. So I went up 1 unit, and I ran 2 units. And that's what I would expect from you when you are explaining how to graph. And that's all you have to do is identify your y-intercept, and I did. It was 0, -5. Find the rise over the run. The rise was 1. The run was 2. So my rise was 1. My run is 2. All right? So everyone knows what I'm expecting for the test. And also, when you're writing essays and explaining how to do something, if you say, I stick it on Desmos and it gives me an answer, you will get a 0 for that question. You must explain step by step how to do it. When it says explain, I'm expecting an explanation. What you should do is do it on your own and then just explain what you did. All right? Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Did everyone copy this? All right. Okay, we're going to move on. All right. What is the domain? This is one of those questions that gets missed a lot. And I want to explain something, how to do it. All right? This open circle means that it is not a part of the answer. So when you are writing domain, you're going to say, okay, and the domain is always the x values. Okay, not the y values. The domain would be the x. So we see that it's by -1, so you're going to say, okay, x, oops, I used this, and it's not. Is greater than. X is greater than -1. But notice here, which would be equal to 4, but it's less than or equal to 4. On a lot of tests, I get students giving me like they say, oh, the domain is, I know one test, the domain They say the domain is blah, 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 one number. The domain is always a range of numbers. So you need to keep that in mind because those are reasons you lose points on tests, is you're giving me a single number when you should give me a range. X is greater than -1 because it was an open circle, and X is less than or equal to 4. Any questions? You're understanding this? Is this clearing up for you, this module? Awesome. All right. Okay. Let's take a look at this. Okay, the table below shows the distance d of t that an object travels in t seconds. What is the average rate of change between 3 and 5 seconds, and what does it represent? So what I'm going to do, first of all, is it's 3 and 5 seconds, so we don't need 6. We don't need 4. So I immediately cross them out. This is my X and this is my Y. What we said about average rate of change. Average rate of change is what? We talked about it being slope, right? So if I say y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, what we're going to do is have the change in y over the change in x. And that's a really important concept that I just said here. Change in y over the change in x, because it's going to be the change in feet over the change in seconds. So distance over time. All right, so let's plug in the values. So my y2 is 350. My y1 is 126. My x2 is 5. My x1 is 3. So I have to get a calculator out. $350 minus 126 is 224. And 5 minus 3 is 2. And I divide, and I get 112. That equals 112 feet per second. Because it's the change in y, which was feet, over the change in t, which is the change in x, which was seconds. Does this make sense? This question here shows up. Module tests, segment tests, segment exams. Really important question. Let me know if you have it copied. All right. Okay, moving on. Choose the equation of a line that is passing through the point -2, 4 and perpendicular to y equals -x plus 4. Wow, this one's a doozy. So we have to see what we're going to do. The first thing we have to identify is the slope. We know that the line is perpendicular, and I'm going to make my little perpendicular symbol to this equation. So we're going to find out what's the slope of this equation. This equation, y equals -x plus 4. What is the slope of this equation? What is the slope? Remember, slopes are always fractions. Who can tell me what the slope of that line is? Okay, remember we had y equals mx plus b. M is your slope. It's the coefficient of x. What is the coefficient of x? One. But is it positive or negative? -1. So your slope is -1, but we can't have a whole number. It has to be a fraction, right? So your slope is -1 over 1 of this equation that is given right here. Right? Now, we need to find a perpendicular line. So we need a perpendicular slope. To find a perpendicular slope, I have to, and here I want you to take notes, to find a perpendicular slope, you flip the slope and change the sign. That's a rule that you should know. To find a perpendicular slope, you flip the slope and change the sign. So, what would the slope be that I need? You flip it. Now, because it's one and one, it kind of makes it kind of weird, because if it was like -3 over 5, then you could see easily that I'm flipping it. So, like, for example, 3 over 5 is perpendicular. It's perpendicular to -5 over 3. They're perpendicular because they have different signs and they're flipped. So for this one, -1 over 1, if you flip it, you're going to get 1 over -1, but then you change the sign and it becomes positive. Well, 1 over 1 is still just plain old 1. So it kind of is a little weird that way. So the slope of our new line is 1. But they give us a point, -2, 4. How many of you remember the point slope formula? Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Our y minus, you use the y, and the y1 is that point that you were given. So you say y minus 4 equals, then your slope we said was 1, times parentheses, x minus -2, because your 2 is negative. What happens when you have two negatives together? It's hard to do. You get a smiley face, it becomes positive. So you get y minus 4 equals 1 times x plus 2. If I distribute that 1, it gives me y minus 4 equals x plus 2. I go ahead and I add a 4 to both sides. And I get, my equation is my equation should be y equals x plus 6. That's my new equation. Now, let's check and see if these lines are really perpendicular to each other. How can we check to see if what we did was correct? Is there any way we could check to see if what we did was correct? Anybody have an idea how we could check it? Are we getting perpendicular lines? Graphing it. Thank you, Gwyneth. Let's take a look at Desmos. All right. So our first equation was y equals negative x plus 4. There we go. We have that first equation. The line that we discovered was y equals x plus 6. Now, are these lines perpendicular to each other? Do they look perpendicular? Does it look perpendicular? Is anyone awake? Tyler? Does it look perpendicular? Okay, thank you. It looks perpendicular. So that's one way to check to make sure the equations that you got are actually perpendicular. You could also find out if the equations are parallel. We talked about parallel earlier. If the slopes are the same, you can graph them and check it. Do you need a minute to copy this all down? Because there's a lot of information here. Only a few more minutes because I've only got 4 more pages. Okay? Okay? All right. All right, here's another one of those word problems. A student needs to make a circular cardboard piece with an area of 154 square inches and between 154 and 616. The function f of r relates to the area of the cardboard piece in square inches to the radius r. Which of the following is a reasonable domain for f of r? So what is the formula for circular area? Area of a circle. Anybody? Not all at the same time. Okay. Area is pi times r squared. Pi r squared. All right. So if area is pi times r squared, let me make it thinner. Area is pi times r squared. We have between 154 and 616. So we can check, let's check 154, which is your smaller end of the deal. So if the area is 154, and that equals pi times r squared, this is what you would do to solve. The first thing you have to do is you have to solve for your radius, because they want to know a reasonable domain. Remember, domain are all your inputs for f of r. So they want the domain, which means your x value, your input. That's what they want. Domain would be x value input. So the first thing we're going to do is divide both sides by pi. Well, what number could we use instead of pi when we're dividing that situation? .14. When you divide both sides by 3.14, you should get a number like 49-ish. It's a little bit above 49, 49.04. But it's still around 49, equals r squared. Let's just say 49. We know it's a little bit above. This is your lower limit. Now, does r squared tell us our r? Or what do we have to do? If 49 equals your r squared, what do we have to do to find r? Anyone? You take the square root of both sides, and you get 7 equals r. So your lower limit would be 7. So at least 7 inches. So in essence, we're saying it has to be this one, because this one would be too large. This one says all positive integers less than 7. Well, 7 is our lower end, right? And here it says all positive integers between 14 and 154. Well, that's not it either, because we just determined that 7 was our lower end. So this would be the correct answer. Do you guys understand that? I think the next one you should find easier. This one's a little harder. Let me make these lines a little thinner so you can see what was on there. Please copy, make sure you understand all that I said here. If you need me to repeat something, let me know. I will repeat. You got it? Okay. All right, we're going to move on. The next one should be quite easy. The graph below shows four straight lines, P, Q, R, and S. Which line, and I think we should all look at this, which line would be, and you tell me, which line would be represented by f of x equals 4x minus 3? Everyone should be able to answer this. We've done several questions of these tonight. one that says maybe S, because there's a question mark, so it's maybe, right? Tyler says it's S. All right, it is S. Take a look. Your y-intercept is at -3. Your slope is positive. It should be a rise over run of 4. So if we draw a triangle between these two, oops. It would be going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a run of 2. 8 over 2 is 4. This is your rise over your run. All right. Let's move on to the next one. All right, this one here has showed up on more tests than I can say, you know, and this is one of those questions that a lot of students miss. So let's take a look at the question and write out the equations and graph them and see what they are talking about. All right, part A, and this one showed up on module tests, final exams. This is one of those that you've got to know. The function is 5 more than 3 times x. So we're going to say f of x equals 5 more than 3 times x. So it's 3x plus 5. You have to be able to write that equation. Now, when we're graphing, we notice something. Notice, they give you the y-intercept, don't they? What is my y-intercept? See that 0, 5? That's your y-intercept. But we're going to go ahead and graph this and be able to then answer the statements. So let's go back to Desmos. Like I said, Desmos is awesome for these kinds of problems. And watch what I do. The first thing I'm going to do is graph that first equation. F of x equals 3x plus 5. There you go. You see that it crosses the y-intercept at 0, 5. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to graph the individual coordinates, -1, 2, 0, 5, and 1, 8. Now, who can tell me about these points? What did they notice? Where did all the points show up? Where did the points show up? Guys, you're killing me. I need some response. Where did all these points show up? Did they all show up on the same line? They all the points showed up on the same line. That's why it's kind of important to graph, because you can actually see that. So the statement that is correct about the two functions, the lines are the same, or function A is equal to function B, that kind of thing. Sometimes you'll see that one line is above it, and then you'll just have to count and see how many, what's the change. But I really recommend that when you have a question like this, you write the equation carefully, graph it, plug in the points, and compare the two lines. Okay? Can we move on to the next question, which is, I think, our last question? Okay? All right, last question. The equation below represent function A and function B. Now, which equation best compares the slopes of the two functions? Now remember, slope is rise over run. So we can figure out the slope of that just by finding the rise over the run. Remember, y equals mx plus b. So your slope for this first one is -2 over 1. And I'm going to make sure you see this. Slope is -2 over 1. Now we're going to find out the slope of the graph. So we're going to draw a triangle. I see that I can have a point right here where I can visually see its coordinates are 2, 1, and then this is a point. So I can draw my right triangle. And now I count. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my rise is 4. And my run is 2. So my rise would be 4 over 2, which equals 2. Now remember, so on your graph, slope is 2 over 1. Or 2. So which slope is greater? Which slope is greater? The graph has a greater slope. The graph has a greater slope. It is the slope, and I always, when you write these essays, I need to have the information of the slope of the graph is 2, and the slope of function A is -2. When you're doing these kinds of questions, make sure you give me the details. Make sure you don't just say, oh, this is greater. Greater by how much? Give me details, okay? Really important to give me details so that I know that you understand these things. And you don't lose points. When you don't give the details and it says explain, you do lose points. Okay, guys, we've come to the end. And you guys have been too quiet. I really wanted more response. Do you have any questions? Now is the time to let those questions out. Okay, does anyone want to reflect anything on the board? You can write on the board if you want. Do you want, so you got it now, Faith? You understand it better? I'm glad you guys were all here. I'm glad you guys came. It's a Friday night, and you could be doing something more fun than algebra, but I'm glad you guys came. Thank you for coming. And now this recording can go to everyone.